Hey, welcome back to another conversation. It's a new year. It's a new decade, 2020. It's exciting. Hope that you had a great Christmas and New Year time. I know it's always exciting and fun and maybe draining.
Yeah.
Maybe you ate too much.
Yes.
I ate too much. Sorry. I don't know. I don't know. It's a lot. And really, we want to jump off of really that reality into this series called I Was blank, now I'm not. And each week for the next 6 weeks, we're going to fill in something that we either were or used to be, or maybe we are now, and how we can move away from that. And really, so this week we really set up that you were empty, and now you're not. Now you're full. And how do we deal with that? Why don't you talk just a little bit more about margin in your life and what that means for you?
Yeah, I think everywhere I go today, it seems like when I have a conversation with anybody, that phrase, overwhelmed or I'm exhausted or I'm busy, is the common characteristics I hear from all walks of life. I said in my message, I used to think it was only for those that were working full time and having a family, but I find it in every circle, in students, with college students and single folks and retired people of all folks. I see that we get our lives consumed with lots of things. And that was sort of what I wanted to talk about.
Yeah, that's true. When you're a kid, you think, only those people that, have really important jobs and, they're the ones who are busy. But the reality is all of us are busy. And the world that we live in, because of technology and because of the way that things have increased so rapidly, the kind of, our world is shrinking in that way, and there's always something to do. Yeah. Right? Netflix always has a new show for me to watch. And there's a new one that comes out and next week and next week, and there's there's like Disney Plus, and my kids love Disney Plus, right? There's an endless amount of content to watch from my childhood, and there's never a shortage of something to do. Yeah. And so
I think just to say one thing, I think you're so right, James. I think we're in a world where content is at our fingertips, and we can get any kind. Used to be in my world as I was growing up, content was inaccessible. We didn't have it. We had to go to a conference or something to get it. But today, we have all the content. So I think the key today is to take in the content and somehow making it valuable for our listeners. And if we can do that, I think that's a game changer. Yeah,
that's good. So you said, I love what you said about margin. You said margin's what we have left over after we've completed all that we believe is necessary.
Yes.
And to piggyback off of what we're just talking about, if you have unlimited content, maybe you never have margin, right?
Never. Yeah.
And that's the thing, is that there's plenty of good stuff to do. I think a lot of people, when you think about, I'm empty and I'm depleted because, I've done X, Y, Z, I've neglected these things. Yeah. But in reality, you could fill your life with good stuff, like things that are not bad, even things that are beneficial for others at the expense of yourself.
Absolutely. I find that in my schedule here at Highlands, it's a large church. And so the demands that are, maybe I shouldn't say demands, the opportunities that come my way are countless. Yeah. And if I'm not cautious, then I fill up my life with so many things that are great things. And it's hard for me to say no, but it's not what God's called me to do. And so I've had to, just learn the hard way of learning how to say no and disappointing people and even angering people at times, to continue to do what I know I'm going to give an account to one day. And, I want to please God more than anybody else in my life. So that makes me, of course, not able to please everybody else, so it's just tough.
That's so hard. I think you and I are similar in that way, where it's like, if there's a good opportunity and it can help somebody, man, that'd be great. And if it could help me, like in my career, it's something that I'm passionate about, I have such a hard time saying no to that, right? Yes. Because it's like, oh man, this could be a great opportunity. And it's like, well, it could be.
And a lot of pastors, a lot of churches are just booming and growing. I mean, you got to be cautious with your staff too. God's hand of favor is on the work. Yeah. But at the time, if you're having your staff out all hours of the day, that's not a banner of pride. I had to learn that, because I could easily not commit things that the church was going to do. But maybe it didn't have anything to do with me, but it actually overcommitted our staff to the place where it was hurtful for them. So we have a lot of accountability in place now. And Pastor Steve down at Bristol, I mentioned, he's just been great for me personally. to keep my soul uncluttered and to think before I act. So those are good people to have in your life.
Sometimes just having a moment to pause is good, right?
Yes.
To share that with someone else. To be like, hey, I was thinking about doing this. And they're like, you shouldn't do that. Like, you don't have time to do that.
Yeah.
I remember when I was in college, I wanted to read the Bible, and there was this, like, it was when P90X was popular.
Yeah.
Remember, like, workout thing? It was like 90 days, you get ripped. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to read the Bible in 90 days. And I think several churches were doing this, like B90X. You know, you could read the... I got like, I don't know, 3 days in, and then you just tank. And if you get a day behind, I mean, you're
done.
You're out of luck. And you know, it was a good thing. Reading the Bible's a good thing. But I was, even if I did it, right? Like, I did that. Like, I don't know what I would have retained. I don't know what that would have meant for me, other than I could brag about it, right?
Right.
Like, and so I just think about that sometimes. It's like, that was not smart, right? Like, reading the Bible's good. Reading the Bible in 90 days, I don't have to do that. Right. But I felt this internal pressure of like, oh, this would be so good for me. It's like, this is going to take like 45 minutes or an hour of reading a day, like quickly.
Yeah.
That's not beneficial. So, you know, there are things that are good and there are things that actually benefit you. And those aren't always the same. You mentioned one thing which I think was good is you know, when you think about, okay, I'm in that empty place, and maybe you're watching this today and you're like, yeah, I'm depleted from the holidays. My bank account's depleted. My, you know, willpower's depleted. Like, I'm tired and I don't want to go back to work. I don't want to do this. How do we make that change? How do we walk through this in the new year?
Yeah, I love what Michael Hyatt, you know, he's been sort of a mentor for me unknowingly, just with all his leadership stuff. But Hyatt, along with Maxwell and all these leadership gurus, they all say if you can declutter your schedule at the beginning of a year, and this is the reason I wanted to do this message right out of the gate as a new year and a new decade, that you'll have so much more of an opportunity to do what God's called you to do over that year than just filling your life up with meaningless things that are good. Because life's going to get filled up, you know. I mean, there's always people going to fill up your life with something. So you have to see, all right, God, what is it that you really want me to give my life to? And then schedule that. And if you can schedule that and deschedule all the other great things, then I think that just helps you to have this uncluttering of your soul, because you're still going to have interruptions. God's going to bring some interruptions. It's just the life in which we live, especially our life, 5 kids, you know. I mean, it's just crazy. And if I didn't schedule time to be a dad and a husband, then I'm going to fail. And if I lose that, then I've lost any other character I might have with ministry. So I think those things are important. Yeah,
you know, for me, and I really have tried this really in the last couple months, kind of thinking about this year. I've been trying to like prime myself to have better habits to go into 2020. And one of those is kind of that hyper scheduling of my time, which is also to schedule like when I'm not available, because I'm just going to sit and read or do something or spend time with my family. Like, you can block off that time as well, because everybody else wants to be, they want on your calendar, right? You're getting invites all the time for this meeting and that meeting and this thing and that thing and this practice. And my kids this year started doing extra like curricular activities like piano and dance. Oh, and it like it instantly became so much more overwhelming. And so I'm having to like, you know, sort of hyper schedule my time. So I go into my calendar and like jot out my day and kind of give that to myself. And it's a gift of margin. And I was watching a video the other day and they said when you schedule your time like that, it's like making an appointment for your friend with coffee. Yes. Having a coffee, you know, kind of meeting. You don't want to miss that. Yeah. If I said, hey, Alan, can we go get coffee? I want to do that, right? And I want to honor that. And so if you can schedule those things and think about them in that same way, don't do that don't bail on yourself, you know, because you're like, oh, I'm too busy to, you know, take time to read. I'm too busy to clean out my junk drawer. Like, no, you're too busy because you don't do those things.
That's so true.
And so, man, it's hard though, because there's a desire, I think, in the beginning of the year, right? It's like, I'm going to get in shape. I'm going to do all these things. And maybe you bite off more than you can chew. Yeah. And you think it's unmanageable to do that. And so I thought you did a good job kind of just pulling it into 5 areas. And we can just run through these of how we can replenish, right? It's not enough just to remove things and create margin. We want to put good in. So number 1, you said connect with God, which seems like a good idea.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's, it doesn't have to be hard. Right. I think sometimes we think about that as like, man, my prayer life's not good. I don't read the Bible enough. And you almost feel bad about it. Mm-hmm. But really, any time that we spend with God is good time, right?
It is.
If you're on average spending no minutes per day regularly and you spend 5, that's an incredible improvement.
Absolutely. I would say go with 5 and try to build to 15.
Sure.
I rarely spend more than 15 minutes a day. Now, again, Pastor Steve can do this for a couple hours. Yeah. He's a lot more spiritual than I am. I don't have the focus for that. But if I can focus for 15, then that's about my attention span. That's about how long I listen to speakers. It's about how long I listen to myself. So I'm about a 15-minute focus guy.
That's good.
I think if I can connect with God, and I've sort of started out at that 5-minute interval and just sort of built over the years to about 15 minutes, it's replenishing for me. And it fills my bucket, to where I'm better all throughout the day. So I would just encourage you to start with a couple of minutes or just, saying a prayer before you go out the door. Do something to connect with God. That's
good. I also mentioned spending time with your family. I think we could add friends in this too. Maybe if you are not with your family, you live away from them, or, some of your family may have passed away. Family, friends, connecting with other people is crucial.
It is. It really is. Yes.
And that, again, when you're stressed, at least for me, I find myself removing my kind of person from the room.
Right.
I like to be around people. I'm very extroverted, but when I'm stressed, I kind of want to be alone.
Yeah.
And that's a shift for me. And so when I see that, not everyone's like that. Maybe you're introverted and you don't want to be around people. But for me, when I shift into that reclusive mode, it's like, I'm overwhelmed. I'm not present in this moment. I'm present with my family. Another thing you mentioned, find something that's satisfying to work on.
Right.
Find a satisfying work.
Yeah, I think our work, we spend so much time with our work. I find very few people today, and this, of course, I'm speaking to Christ followers. I'm not really speaking to those of us who aren't Christians. I'd sort of encourage you to become a Christian, but honestly, I think Christians are some of the worst people to get your life so filled up with good things and miss really what God wants you to do. Yeah. So work is one of those huge time things in our life. We spend so much time there. And I find so many Christian people who just hate their work. Yeah. And I've just said, I realize our economy in Southwest Virginia, Northeast Tennessee is not, you just can't go out and get, you can't work at some of these incredible companies that are in Silicon Valley or something like that. But they're, just pray. God's an awesome God. And I'd say sometimes our attitude needs to change about our work. Yeah. And then sometimes God needs to change our work. But that's really something He can help us with. Yeah.
Another thing you mentioned, which I think is something that seems obvious, but maybe we're bad at, is recreation.
Yes.
Doing something for fun. Which is crazy, but sometimes we're bad at having fun.
Yeah. Oh, I just grew up in a generation, I didn't have anything. We grew up with nothing. And all my mentors were, you worked 80 hours a week, and your life was about success. Yeah. And I think that in the early days, I put in a lot of hours. I really did. And maybe that's what it took to get the church going or whatever. And you weren't compensated very well for those kinds of things. Sure. But I've learned that, honestly, I got to have something to where I push pause about work and success. Yeah. And what can I do to have some recreation, just some fun? I just really didn't have fun. And yet that's an amazing part of the Christian life. So, through counseling, they helped me to understand you don't have to feel guilty about taking some time to have some recreation. A lot of people at Highlands are runners, I've noticed. My executive pastor, Pastor Jim, he's out running and he says it's just a replenisher for him to run 3 miles a day. Now, for me, that would be a depleter. Yeah, but, different things replenish us. And you just find recreation-wise what can replenish you.
And the last thing, kind of to kind of hit on that again, is exercise. Yeah. Is finding some way to be active. Again, another thing in my life is a good marker that the more overwhelmed I am, the less I'm wanting to get out and do something. Right. Yeah. Even if it's just to go, do something fun, go for a walk, do whatever. Mm-hmm. When I'm like, I haven't exercised in so long, it's probably because I'm overwhelmed. Yeah. And so it's a good reminder that being active is good for you. It's good for your mind. It's good for your body.
I really do think our area lends. Again, my daughter was just in from Atlanta, and they have to, they have to maybe take 30 minutes to drive 2 or 3 miles to get to a place where they can exercise or something. But for us, man, this is one of the greatest areas that we have so many opportunities to replenish ourselves with some kind of exercise. I don't know what that is. I like walking on the Creeper Trail here in Abilene. It's an amazing trail. Sure. I meet a lot of people. So obviously I'm not burning a lot of calories because I'm stopping and talking to people all the time. Hey, Pastor Allen. But I love that. I love getting out, and it's beautiful, and it's a replenisher. So some form of exercise, I think, it just proves health benefits, especially as we age. We need that. And you young guys, y'all already know this, but for me, I need to get out and exercise a little bit.
I think I've found is that we keep aging, though. When I think about this decade, it's like, 10 years ago, it's like I was younger and in better shape, and it's harder now to do even those things. I'm not that old, but
I got bad news for you, James.
I know it's not going to get better.
It gets worse, man.
I know. I need to. Maybe I need to commit to that. And really, that's we can kind of end here, and that is, you said something that I thought was good to end this, which was take an assessment of where you are, right? Yeah. And then try to craft a custom replenishment plan for your life.
Yes.
Like I said a minute ago, me reading the Bible in 90 days was not a good idea for me. I was in the middle of midterms when that happened. It was a terrible idea. It wasn't a custom plan for me. I took someone else's thing and tried to shove my schedule into it. I think the best thing you can do is be honest about where you're at. And don't just make this goal so far from being attainable. Really consider where am I? Where could I be a year from now, realistically? And how could I pray through, and how could God help me work toward that goal? I think you might hit it if you do it that way.
Yeah, one of the things when I really bottomed out and sort of shared that in the message was I went to a counselor, found a Christian counselor, and I didn't make rash decisions because I was in the midst of things I couldn't quit at the time. But I was building margin. I started saying no to things for the future. So once I finished the degree and once we finished the building program, then I took a season and just had some respite time with God and tried to restore family and those kinds of crucial relationships. And that custom plan for me is going to be for me, and you need one for your life. But, man, just give yourself to it because I think it's so important to stay where God wants us to stay.
That's good. Hope you're excited about this series. I think it's going to be really fun. It's going to be hopefully encouraging and challenging. Some of the weeks might hurt a little more than others when you consider some of those things we're going to talk about, but we're going to do our best to address them in a biblical way and a way that can help you and help us, right? We're not experts. We're just people who are experiencing all these things with you, and we are here with you. So I hope you stick around for these next 5 weekends as well. It's going to be really great. And again, Happy New Year. We're excited about what God's going to do in 2020 through Highlands Fellowship and through you. We'll see you next week.